Next up is Disappear Completely. Movie's interesting, set in Mexico, I believe. It centers on a tabloid crime photographer played by actor Harold Torres. This photographer, he has a mysterious illness that is making him gradually lose his five senses. Why is this happening to him? Maybe it might be bad karma because this crime photographer, he's really aiming to get his own gallery showing of his morbid, tabloidy photos. And the movie starts off with him at a very horrific crime scene. There's this woman, I don't know, I think she's under a bar and she's just dead. And he just goes right up to her and keeps on shooting. And he doesn't mind dead bodies and he doesn't mind lurid photos because he's the one who takes them. So maybe he's actually losing some of these senses because there is a supernatural force that is working against him or trying to remind him that he should be a little bit more of a human being. Well, this crime photographer also has I don't remember if it's his wife or his lover. Let's just assume it's his wife, and she's wants to actually go to the next phase of their relationship. I believe she works in a hospital, and she's a nurse, and she wants him to grow up and trying to tell him like, hey, we need to actually grow up as a couple. We need to possibly start raising a family. But again, this photographer, he's very self-centered, self-serving, and he's all about his career. Now, what happens when all of these photos, when fate yields or turns its ugly head towards him and he starts to, quote, disappear completely? This movie is directed by Luis Javier Hinan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. My apologies. It hits Netflix on April 12th. Let's start off with Eric Holmes. Your thoughts on Disappear Completely?
This was a pretty good thriller. Up until about, let's see, the halfway point, and then it made some bold decisions and went from a pretty good thriller to, oh my God, I cannot believe they're getting away with this. I kind of love this. I don't know that we want to get into what that second half is, but it's definitely yeah, the choices made in the last half really kind of elevates it. I think maybe it could be seen as a gimmick, perhaps, but it kind of works with the whole theme of the story. It's definitely got strong Seven vibes, strong To Catch a Killer vibe
Right.
or Misanthrope vibes. You know, it's kind of one of those type of movies, Spanish version of that. But I think this is one of those that it starts off kind of, what you would expect from this kind of movie, and then just goes places where it's like, oh, this is cool. And then I believe, Greg, that was your interview you did
Yes.
with the director
Hmm.
where they explained that. I'm so glad that we got the movie that we got because I think it just kind of it just brings it from like this is a pretty good 3.5 star movie to, oh, this, yeah, you guys went for it, and I appreciate that.
You know what's so interesting, Eric? You mentioned the interview that I did with the director, and Bruce, maybe you can chime in too. Do we have an unfair advantage when we're actually interviewing the director or the writer from a project? Do you think that it ultimately colors our ultimate rating on the movie? Because we get by actually interviewing the people, it's not like I'm not talking about the bias of whether you like them or not, if that colors your reviews, but they give us all that extra information. Like Luis Javier, he gave us like maybe 5 or 6 minutes of talking about the ending. Do you think that does that influence us in
Um,
general or not?
typically we watch the movie before we do the interview, so like I was already impressed with it by then, and then hearing the interview, it was just cool to see. I'm probably shouldn't talk about this too
Yeah.
much
Okay. What do you
because
think, Bruce?
I'm
Do you
like
think
writing the line on that.
do you think convo is it just human nature for it to influence a final rating, or do you think that's neither here nor there? That's two separate worlds. We just keep those things separate.
I mean, it could. It just depends. I mean, in this case, I don't think it did because I was like Eric. I didn't listen to the interview until after I already was really strong on this movie as well. So, but I mean, I guess it could, especially if you were like on the fence on something, it might sway you. Or if you weren't quite getting something, you might give it credit if they kind of explained it to you. But that wasn't the case in this. I also want to say, and I'm not going to give away the spoiler stuff that he talks about at all, but I appreciated the fact that you talk to him also about stuff that he cut out. He talks about that, which is really interesting. But then he kind of says like, yeah, but that stuff didn't make it better. I mean, I could put it somewhere, but it really doesn't make the movie better. That was refreshing to me to hear because so many times you hear like, "Oh, I couldn't bear to give up this, or I couldn't bear to give up that." You know what I mean?
I killed my
Or they,
darling.
yeah, or they'll put all the cut scenes on the whatever because they think it's just like this valuable stuff that never got in there. Snyder is a prime example, right? To the nth degree. But he's like, yeah, that stuff probably needed to be cut. It's better without it. So I kind of
Well,
appreciated that.
so Snyder seems to be the kind that's like, yeah, I cut all these scenes out that would have made it a good movie, but I left in all the bad stuff. But it's cool. We'll have an extended version that you can watch later.
It's funny. Yeah. So look, Disappear Completely, Bruce, your thoughts on the movie. Now, it's a slow burn. Eric really described it pretty well in his review. Do you think that slow burn, moody type atmosphere will draw people away from it because it's not like quick cutty or it's not jump scary. It's more of a mood atmospheric thriller.
I don't think that would draw people away because I think if you're into that, you're going to stay into it. And if you're not, it might not, it might win you over, but it might not. You know what I'm saying? I think if anything might be hard for people because it does straddle several different genres. That
Yeah.
could throw some people off because if they want it to be straight up grounded crime thriller procedural, it goes other places that are more in the genre horror realm, and vice versa. If you're a person that just wants a very spooky or scary supernatural movie, then this movie might be too much the other way for you and more of a procedural. And I kind of had the exact same experience I think that Eric had. Halfway through, I was like, this is pretty good. There's a few things that are slightly tropey, like there's a moment where there's a double dream wake up, and I'm always like, okay, come on now, guys, you don't have to do this double dream wake up. But all of that stuff aged well because as the second half started happening, you could kind of retroactively look at some of those things and go like, okay, well, that was actually in service of what we're going to become. And then
Yes.
also absolutely in lockstep with Eric, the bold choices they made, I thought were absolutely great and really, sure, are they gimmicky? I don't think so, because what they do is they actually work in the narrative, as a narrative device that kind of works, but they also work thematically and on you emotionally as a watcher, because the things that are happening to you, I'm just kind of leaving it as vague as I can. The way you're experiencing the movie in the second half increases the feelings that they want to increase, this kind of these feelings of dread and suffocation and trapped by his, maybe his fate if he can't get out of it. I'm just kind of leaving it like that. So I think it all works in that effect. Also, things that I considered tropey that annoyed me at the beginning of the movie, like Monday,
All right.
each Tuesday, that actually worked in this movie because when stuff was going on, that timeline actually worked. Look, put it for a perfect example. That is famously in The Shining. It matters. It matters not a bit in The Shining. In this movie, it really matters because everything, the timeline is a part of the story. So I give it pretty high marks for all
It's
that
like
stuff.
the Michael Bay movies when they got the helicopter shot and it's like Los Alamos, 9:35
Yeah.
p.m. I'm like, who gives a crap?
Yeah.
I,
And I
I,
was doing that. I was doing that side eye with this at the beginning. And then it was like, oh, no, no, this is actually working on me now.
We
I
also
think the stuff that they do with it, and also what's so exciting watching that is that it works. There's every possibility that it does not work at all and just tanks a movie. And the
Yep.
fact that it does work, it's like, oh, you're killing it. Yeah, good.
Yeah. And we're gonna to your point, Eric,
Yeah.
we're gonna probably see more of those kind of gambles and they won't work, meaning copycat movies because they've seen the ending of Disappear Completely, which I think, do you see
I think this is why people kind of appreciate like movies that kind of swing for the fences and they don't work. It's like I appreciate that they tried. This is just an
fair,
example where they swung for the fences and it did work.
fair. That is fair. Now let's get to ratings on Disappear Completely again, Friday, April 12th. For our Cinematics Patreon listeners, we're gonna do a quick mini spoiler after recording this episode, and then on top of that, we'll have Luis Javier name talking about the ending, 5 or 6 minutes, and Bruce and Eric they listen to the interview, so they can attest to he really dives deep into the ending, right? So yeah,
Yeah. He didn't
definitely.
have to give you that much at all. He could literally put your interview about the spoilers, just throw it on the Blu-ray. He
Yeah,
should.
yeah, and
Just a
he
little
should.
plug to cinematics.
Yeah, he should throw it on the Blu-ray. Yeah. Anyway, so disappear completely. I all I'm gonna say to this is what Eric and Bruce said. I'm gonna co-sign on it, and I'm giving it 4.5 stars for disappear completely. What about you, Bruce Purkey?
I am also 4.5 stars, probably because of that first half. It brings it down slightly, but I feel like now watching it again with the knowledge of where it's going, it will probably go up.
Wow, that is really cool. And Mr. Eric Holmes, your rating on disappear completely.
Yeah, I'm 4.5 too. Also, room to grow. Like this could be like one of those movies because it has stuck with me, just throughout the week. And this is a movie that I could see like maybe getting to the end of the year, and someone would ask how many stars they gave it. I would have had to have given it 5. Like, so it might just be one of those. It was like kind of a 3.5, 4-star thriller, and then just that ending just took it up a notch for me.
Okay, so that is our ratings for disappear completely. 4.5 for me. 4.5 for Bruce. Wait, 4.5 for all of us.
Oh,
Eric has 4.5. Yes, Eric.
and the actual ending, perfect. Like
Yes.
the right before
Yeah,
the credits start rolling,
yeah,
nailed it. Yeah, we'll give this a 5.
I know, right? Nailed it. Okay, Bruce and Eric, they'll take a maybe 2-minute siesta while I completely blabber on about this movie starring. Oh yes, I'm sorry,
One
Bruce.
small
Yes, of
thing,
course. Yes,
Eric,
sir.
do we want to talk about dog warning?
Yeah,
Yes, yes, we
yeah.
do. Yes, Bruce. Why don't you go for it, Bruce? Go
I would
for
just
it.
say Eric likes to bring up warning if there's a dog or an animal in the movie and how beware.
Okay, sorry, Eric, go for it. You want to say something
Um,
about the dogs?
yeah, Bruce, go ahead. I might give away too much.
I'll just say if you are really worried about dogs and pets in the movie, you might have a reason to be worried in this movie. It is a horror movie, so
Yeah,
know that. I will also say that as worried as I was and how annoyed I am usually, let's just say in this movie, it felt justified and it was important to have happen what happened, I think, for the path of the character.
I think it's also projected enough that you can get up and go to the bathroom and come back, and
For sure.
you can
A
see it
hundred
coming.
percent, 100%. And yeah, that is a harrowing moment. Thank you, Bruce and Eric, for mentioning that moment. So yeah, again, be warned.